2, 1.
Welcome. We are at our second episode for Blue Collar Green Pockets. Last week we had some great nurses on here. They were so passionate that me and Dave we had to get the HVAC guys in here because that's what we do, and we're just as passionate. So we've got a great panel tonight. We've got Timmy Tyler out of Wilmington, North Carolina, Michelle Newcomb out of Clarksville, Virginia, and Dave Gerald out of Wilmington, Delaware. Joining us again, our co-host, we've got Chuck Wilson. There he is over here. And then we've got the guru, Dave Jones. Chuck got a little deep on us last week. We'll see how he does this week. He's our inspirational piece.
That's why I have the ocean behind me.
All right, so we're gonna
doing what you're doing, Chuck.
Let's get this kicked off. Try to stay within our hour again. We did great last week. Depends on how it goes. We might do a little overtime. But let's get started. We're gonna go right at the top of the list. I got Timmy Tyler out of Wilmington, North Carolina. Timmy, tell us why you got into HVAC.
I got into it for the money, honestly. I started my career out as an automotive mechanic, and I was working at a shop turning wrenches, and a bunch of guys were bringing in their mud trucks, and they were tearing them up every weekend, and they'd bring them in every Monday or Tuesday and want them fixed, and they just had money to burn. And I was like, what do you guys do? And 3 out of 4 of them did HVAC work, and I was like, that's where I need to be. So,
I love it. That's great.
That's pretty much what got me into it. And then I signed up for local community college classes, and then everything just made sense to me. It all just.
What was your age then, Timmy?
I was about 22, 23, somewhere in that age range.
How old are you now, Tim?
I am 38 now.
38. Okay. Did you get a job with one of those guys with the mud trucks?
No, I did not.
Okay.
They're all kind of one-man bands, didn't want employees, they just kind of did their own thing. So I ended up straight out of school working for a locally owned company. They immediately put me into new construction, and then I progressed into add-on replacement work for existing construction.
What's that HVAC? So that was that heating and air?
Yeah, that was residential heating and air. And then transitioned from that company to another local company where they spent a lot of time with me, training me on service repair work, and got me trained up in the service work. And I spent the next 8 or 9 years doing residential HVAC. Then I wanted to grow from there. I took a job doing industrial ammonia refrigeration and didn't quite like that too much. And then went to Johnson Controls for a few years. And then now I've kind of settled in. The last 5-6 years or so, I've been with Hobart Service doing commercial restaurant equipment and refrigeration. And about 5 years ago, I got my refrigeration license here in the state of North Carolina.
Nice.
That's great. One question on the college. So were you still working at the auto shop when you were doing the college classes at night, or did you wait until you got a job and did that?
I actually quit working at the auto shop shortly into my first semester, and I took a job with a towing company because it was about the only job I could find where I could go to school full time during the day, and they could still figure out a way to work me 80 hours a week around that. So
Okay.
I ended up hooking cars at nights and weekends and stuff like that. And then I just went through the college program full time during the day. And I chose the community college here in Wilmington, North Carolina, specifically because they didn't stretch it out. It was a 1-year program, August to August, straight through, and you were done, and you had the equivalent of kind of an associate's degree specified to the HVAC field.
Great.
Like a certificate program kind of for them?
Right. Yes, sir.
Now, did you have in the automobile or when you were working on the mud trucks and stuff like that, had you been to school for that, or was that just something you learned?
That's something I learned growing up my whole life. My dad's always been into automotive stuff. I grew up around cars and trucks my whole life, so it was just something I got into. And early in my automotive career, trying to work on factory stock vehicles just wasn't doing it for me, because everything my dad worked on was modified or hopped up or, race cars, and that's just what I wanted to work on. So that career was kind of ending for me, because I didn't want to work on, factory cars that people drove every day, so.
Sure.
Do you have a mud truck now?
It's not really a mud truck, but I call it the bro dozer. It's lifted up and it's got big tires on it and everything.
Of course you do. HVAC pays, right?
Did you see? Did you see? Hey Timmy, did you see a lot of crossover? I mean, I've known several guys that came out of the automotive industry into HVAC. Did you see a lot of crossover there? I mean, did you see any commonalities?
I'm not sure. I mean, just trying to think back. I'm not sure there was. I think the mechanical inclination helped a lot. Knowing nuts and bolts about things. The science stuff was very interesting to me. Learning about the Boyle's law and things like that. The whole science behind it really, really interested me. And the biggest thing that was for me was I did a lot of DC electrical work in the automotive community. And when it came time to do AC work, and my instructor was like, "Oh yeah, it don't matter which way you hook the wires, it goes both ways." I was like, "Oh crap, well this is so easy right here." I mean, everything, DC, you're going one direction, you gotta make sure you get it wired right, and then you just go over here to AC and it don't matter. And it just made everything so much easier.
That's great. We're gonna get back to you in a minute here, Timmy, but I'm gonna go with Michelle. Same thing. Michelle, you're a chick, you're an HVAC. How'd you do it? I mean, we don't have many. We need more. Tell us.
I've been doing it a long time. Daddy started business back in '72, and he drug me out on calls with him. He started off doing actually television repair. He took his GI Bill and sent himself to college, and got his, I think it was something in electronics that he got, and he started off doing television repair.
Back then, he was probably carrying tubes around, right?
Oh yeah, I still have some. Oh yeah. And then he just took on appliances and then heating and cooling, and like I said, just followed him around. Daddy taught me a lot. I mean, a lot over the years. I guess you could say I'm kind of old school, because Daddy taught me old school.
Did you go to technical school or college or anything?
I actually, probably about maybe 15 years ago, I started going to night classes. They actually offered something at the college that I'm teaching at now. They started offering an HVAC class at night, and I went for quite a few years. And, Dad taught me some, but I also learned some in school too.
Did you find, because you had been in the field already, like when you went to school, you kind of knew what they were talking. You didn't know the theory maybe, but you knew what the tools were.
Oh,
You kind of knew when somebody said you're going to flare this.
Oh yeah.
As opposed to a new person, you were like, "Hey, I know what that is," or "I'm going to swedge this," or you have a cap tube, or you knew the terminology. Did that help to know all that first before you?
Oh yeah. It did help a lot. It did. It really did.
Yeah, that's what I would think. Chuck, you looked like you had something on your mind.
Well, I'm just looking at the ways that these two folks so far have entered the field, and it's two different ways. I mean, one out of envy and one out of that's how they grew up. So
Most people in the HVAC, it is family or friend related. Most people, they don't just wake up one morning and be like, "I'm going to do HVAC."
That's true.
Yep. So Dave, you're on the mic. Tell us. How about you?
I actually took HVAC in high school. And,
Me too.
When I first got out of high school, though, I didn't do HVAC because 17 years old, wasn't really making a lot of money. I actually was doing residential roofing up until my wife got pregnant with our first kid. Then I needed something more stable, because when you're roofing, most of the winters you were laid off. So, and then of course when it rained, you didn't work.
By stable, not meaning a 9-to-5 job, though.
Right. So I got back into it. My first job.
Dave, how old were you then? Like, give us an idea.
I was 17 when I graduated. So.
And then how many years in roofing? And then
I was about 19.
Okay.
About to turn 20 when I got back into it.
Mm-hmm.
And my first job actually was at a company that did nothing but mobile home work, and that was pretty bad. We'll just put it that way. Some of the places we had to go were pretty nasty, and I didn't like doing that, so I wanted to pursue a different avenue in the trade. I ended up going to McFoy's. Everybody in Delaware knows who McFoy's was. I ended up taking a specialized refrigeration class, and I don't know if you remember Dave from McFoy's.
Sure.
He took me under his wing, and I think he taught me most of what I know. Him and his father, I don't know if you knew, they actually designed and built ice skating rinks in Canada.
I never knew that. No.
Yeah, so Dave was very instrumental in a lot of the things that I learned, and now I work for a company that does semi-custom builds for hospitals, governments, buildings, the Army. I mean, you name it. I'm probably involved.
Yeah, you get into a lot of different. Now you're mainly like, you're not working on mobile homes or residential anymore. You're industrial,
Yeah.
commercial. You're probably doing a lot of commissioning, a lot of troubleshoot, figuring stuff out that facilities guys can't figure out. That kind of stuff. It seems like
finding engineering issues. You name it.
Yeah, on a wide variety of equipment too, right?
Yeah, very wide variety. One of the things that actually brought me here was that maglev compressor. I don't know, if everybody here knows what one is, but it's a magnetically levitated shaft, no oil in the compressor, and that is awesome.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting stuff there. You know when you hear your stories, it makes me think of a hospital. It makes me think of you got a doctor up in the cardiac area, and you got a doctor down in the endocrinology area, and you got a doctor over here, you got a doctor over here. They all have a stethoscope. Okay, all you guys have gauges, and you're all using them for different things, right? You all have gauges. I mean, I doubt that Dave has a 1/4-inch tap line valve on his truck, and you probably have a bunch of them, Michelle, right? Yeah, I mean, but you're all using the same tools to get to a different. You're all using voltmeters.
Yep.
You're all using gauges. So the common denominator here, and the common theme is education, basics, right? Tell me, Michelle, how key is the basics in learning HVAC?
I mean,
and name the top 5 basic things you would need to know. They're strong.
Yeah. Theory of operation is, what I tell my students, if you know the theory of operation and you can read a wire diagram, you can just about fix anything.
Mm-hmm.
And to those at home, I mean, the basic principle is air conditioning is the removal of heat. We're not adding cold air. We're removing heat. So when we're talking about operations, just for all you at home that are watching this.
Yeah. Or the sealed system process of what's going on inside, right?
Exactly.
Right. Because we live in that world. Tonight happens to be the night that Jared and I know something about the topic. We didn't know anything about the healthcare topic last week. But we live in that world, and when we walk into a grocery store, we walk into a convenience store, we walk into any place that's hot or cold, we all know what's going on behind the scenes, and other people that aren't in our world may not know that. Okay, so we all kind of know it, right? We all kind of know it. So the basics, it sounds like, Michelle, is like the sealed system, the electrical system, getting really key with that.
Yes.
Because you take a guy like Dave, he went from, and I'm pretty sure I know now who he was working for when he did the mobile home stuff. He's doing these mobile homes, and now he's working on industrial stuff.
Yeah.
But he's using the same gauges, right, Dave?
Yeah.
Same theory or principle.
Yeah.
He's not hooking up 18-inch flex duct anymore, though.
Nope.
But it's all the same. Timmy, tell us about what you think about the principle stuff in it.
Oh, absolutely. It's the same basic stuff. I mean, I've carried it through my whole career, from starting at residential to going to ammonia refrigeration, where I was working on multiple 100 horsepower Frick compressors, open drives, and stuff like that. Over to Johnson Controls, where it's like, hey, here's some pneumatic controls here, here's some 5 milliamp stuff over here, and they had at the time when I was working for them, they had the largest chiller project going on in the country at the time. It was right after the economic downturn. And there was a tire plant here in Eastern North Carolina that was installing a $10 million chiller system. And, you know, just putting all that stuff together and working with that stuff, it was the same deal. You know, a lot of people ask me, you know, what do you do? And I just tell them I'm a doctor of heating and cooling. You know, what's the first thing you do when you go to the doctor's office? Well, first they ask you how you're going to pay for it, and then they're going to check your pressures and temperatures. The same thing we do. Call the office, and the lady's like, okay, how are you going to pay me today? And then the customer tells you, and then you show up, and you're going to start checking pressures and temperatures. You know, same thing, you know. But, no, I mean, and today, you know, I fix, I mean, there's pretty literally nothing in a restaurant that I cannot fix, you know, and it's all the same principles. A fryer, a lot of the lesser expensive fryers are just a standing pilot, you know, just basic heating 101, you know, and then it goes all the way up in the major control boards and stuff, you know, and you get in the control boards, and like Michelle was saying, it's a lot of the theory of operation. All these control boards have a certain mode of operation they go in, and if they don't do the things they're supposed to do in that mode of operation, then there's your faulty problem right there, you know.
That's good stuff there. Go ahead, Chuck.
I want to just start with an observation that a lot of what we've been talking about has been the push that people have on their kids to go to college. You know, like right out of high school, get into college. They don't know what they want to be. They have no clue. What could, like each of you, to kind of describe how your approach to your careers was superior, I think, and I want you to go that direction anyway. How your approach was superior to being pushed to do something before you had any real inkling of where you wanted to go. Start with Michelle.
Oh, wow. Actually, I went to college right after I got out of high school. I actually took drafting and design and business. I spent a couple years there, wasn't for me, and actually I did secretary work for quite a few years. Did a couple factory jobs. Then I ended up falling back into the family business, and I have been here ever since. It's just, I don't know, it's just, I like the daily challenge. I've got a great customer, you know, base. They love, you know, they love me. I love them, you know. But I just like, it's every day is something different. It's not the same thing every day. And it's, you know, like I said, sometimes it's just, you know, the daily challenge. It's something like it's always, you know, making you want more.
So what was the push that had you in college to begin with?
My parents.
Number one answer.
Yeah. Timmy, what describe how your path to your career might have been better than wasting years in college?
I remember leaving middle school and starting high school, and the whole time my mom was telling me, these are the classes you have to take to get into college. These are the prerequisites you have to take. You have to take a Spanish or a French class. You have to take a language class. You know, you have to do this and you have to do that. And I just wasn't having it. I mean, I hated school. I couldn't stand school. I was nothing short of a juvenile delinquent. I mean, I was the class clown. I was cutting up. I was getting suspended all the time. I was ready to get out of school and get on with my life, you know. And you know, there was some learning after school there. You know, like I said, I started my career as automotive because that's what I spent my whole life doing and around. And I just thought that I was going to take off and be some super mechanic on cars and stuff, you know. And it just later down the road, I just decided that just wasn't quite for me. And I started looking around for other careers and other paths to do. Most of my friends from high school that I hung closely around, they all, after high school, went to work. You know, it was kind of where I grew up. It was a poor boy goes to work and a rich man goes to college. And what I saw through high school, that rings true. You know, all the kids that had a little bit better off than us, they went right on into college, and then we went to work. And I don't know, man. I don't see any difference in our lives between, you know, them and us or anything. I know I don't have a mountain of debt to pay. I know that's for certain.
Something you said earlier, Timmy, about you said you hated school. Okay?
Oh, absolutely.
So it sounds to me
too.
like you hated school, and then you went to do the mechanic thing. Then you saw the HVAC guys coming in and throwing money at you to get their trucks fixed.
Right.
Then you went to school, and you said something earlier. And when you said something earlier, I forgot all about the money, and I thought about the passion. Like
Right.
when you started learning Boyle's
absolutely.
law, Ohm's law, all this stuff, and it started clicking in your head, it kind of got fun, and you kind of got a passion for it, right?
I did.
And you wanted. I bet you did great in refrigeration school.
I did very well.
Okay, you didn't do good in regular school because you
No.
didn't like it. So once you found, I mean, I was right there with you. Trust me. I can tell you what my graduating
were.
class size was because I know how many I was from the bottom. But anyway, but what I'm trying to get at here is the passion. It sounds like the passion for it is what made you do well.
Yeah, definitely. I think if anything, our country would be better ahead if we can move these trades down towards the high school level, bring them back. I mean, when I was in high school, we still barely had like a carpentry class. We had an automotive class. We had a drafting class. But that was about it. You know, I grew up, my dad, he grew up in just outside of Cleveland, Ohio. And he was telling me about how when he was my age, they had like special just schools that kids could go to for the trades, you know, electrical, drafting, bricklaying, things like that. And it just, none of that, all that stuff seems to have gone by the wayside, you know. I did get 2 automotive semester credits, and I just went to the auto tech class and took the pre-semester test and took the post-semester test. I never took a day of the class, and I got those credits for that class simply by taking those tests. And Mr. Brown, Coach Brown, the automotive teacher at the time, was like, "Please do this again for me next semester. Your test score raises my whole class average up." You know, so okay, buddy.
So, Dave, how would you answer that?
Gerald?
For myself, like Tim, I hated school. I detested being there. Most of what we learned there wouldn't be put to practical use, with the exception of some math, or at least I felt, you know. However, when it came to shop, like Timmy was saying, that's what I was interested in. I've always been that way. I like taking things apart, seeing how they work. If they break, I like trying to repair them. But yeah, I couldn't have taken another 4 years of, you know, strict school all day long, and then trying to work. Because for me, I would have had to work 2 part-time jobs in order to pay for, you know, my dad spent 30 years as a GM auto worker. He couldn't afford to, you know, put me through college. So short of getting a scholarship, I wasn't going unless I paid for it myself. But again, like Tim, I like to learn. The more I learn, the more passionate about something I get, the more interested I get in it, and the more time I'll devote to it.
And not to be confused, Gerald, we do lots of learning. I mean, how many you look at all the stuff you work on. How many factory classes, how many continuing education classes do you take yearly? Not just once at Ford and then you're over for the rest of your life. Quite, yeah. I mean, I know I have to take, you know, even if nothing else, our continuing education every 2 years, 8 hours for electrical and mechanical. And Timmy, you've got a refrigeration. You still got to do your continuing education, right?
Well, right now my state doesn't require continuing education for my refrigeration license. And then, matter of fact, just a few years ago, there used to be a yearly requirement for continuing ed for your HVAC licenses, and they've done away with that. Now the only time they're going to do continuing ed is if there's some major code changes.
But you're still going to the ice machine classes and the factory compressor and all that good
Definitely.
stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm still pulling resources, mostly online these days.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
usually
great.
just-
Great tool online now.
Yeah, I'm usually pulling most of my resources from online. But there's most ice machine classes, if they're in the area, they're usually pretty good. At least every couple of years or so, go and catch up on what's changing, what's coming out.
Right, because you do restaurant. That's what we do. So I mean, we're the fryers and everything. The fact that you did the controls at Johnson, I think is probably why you're excelling with all that equipment because it's all the same, like you said.
Oh,
Controls.
absolutely.
Once you know controls, doesn't matter what it is.
Yep, absolutely.
What changes, and to no one specific to jump in with your response as you feel it, but what changes need to be made, like at the high school level, to adequately bring people into learning? I mean, obviously you were ready to learn, but it was not fertile ground for you guys.
Well, here in Delaware, they actually have several high schools throughout Delaware that are tech schools. That's only been the last few years. There were only 2 that I know of when I grew up. I believe there's 4 now, Dave.
Yes, 4 now in the state, I believe.
Right, and we are one of the smallest states in the union. So,
First state too.
Are they having a
think-
hard time filling those? Because they are in Virginia as far as the just the tech schools. We have them. They're just having a hard time filling them.
Oh no, we're filling them.
yeah, we're
Yeah.
definitely filling. We could use a few more here, even in the small state. I mean, these kids are they're filling them up pretty quick.
That's great.
On a job satisfaction 1 to 10, what's y'all's answer on that?
How about career satisfaction? Not your individual employer necessarily, but
I Facebook trolled them a little earlier, and they're all posting positive stuff on their jobs and careers.
you troll.
I trolled them, and they are
That's
all
a
living.
polite way to say stalker, by the way.
And they're all living the American dream. I mean, they are. They got great families. I watch them. They're traveling. I mean, they're doing the barbecues. Working on stuff. They're posting all kinds of stuff. So
you know what they all have in common? They all have the passion for it still.
that's it.
Right.
They all had the passion for it. They know that every minute it's something different. I mean, I watch Dave Jarrell on Facebook. I watch all 3 of you. It's something different every day in this trade, right?
Yeah.
It's something different. I mean, have any of you gone to a young kid maybe at a barbecue or something, or a family friend said, hey, that didn't know what he was going to do? Because you know what? And these guys are sick of me saying this, but I have 2 boys, and at the junior year when they were juniors and it was barbecue, always the parents coming up to them going, where are you applying? Where are you going? Where are you applying? Where are you going? Nobody ever talked about trade school. Nobody ever talked about the military. Nobody ever talked about taking a year off. Nobody ever talked about anything except for where are you going? Where are you going? Where are you applying? Where'd you get in? Where are you going? What's your top 7 colleges you're going to visit? I mean, that's what they want to know. Would you guys recommend this career to somebody? And how would you do that? How do you go about doing that?
Well,
Anybody.
I brought my son into the career. He's been in probably going on 7 years now. When he was a senior, he was actually in construction in Del Castle. And during his senior year, he needed to co-op. He couldn't find a job in construction, so I begged him to just, give it the summer, see if he liked it. So here he is 7 years later. He's working for another company and doing really well.
Good. Is he in service, Dave, like you? Like
Yeah.
that background?
Yeah, yep.
Good stuff. Good stuff. What about you guys? Michelle, would you? I mean, obviously, I know the answer to this because you're a teacher.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure you've talked to people. But you have a couple daughters that ride around with you on service calls. I've seen pictures of them, right?
Yes, they do. Yeah, and they enjoy it. They enjoy going to the customers' houses and just speaking with the customers and stuff. And I got a daughter. She's getting ready to go to college soon, but she's worked helping me do installs and stuff, and she loves it. She's just like me. She'll crawl right up under that house, get dirty. She doesn't care. I mean, if I mean, not just my daughters, but any kid, if I see like they have like the need or the want, to learn something, I'm not going to deny it. I will not deny it. If they ask me a question, I'm going to answer. And, just like I tell my students, there is no stupid question at all. Doesn't matter what it is, you ask the question because you want to know, and I'm going to answer it the best way I can.
Well, what's interesting, we got 3 people on here in the same industry, so to speak. Just 3. We have 3. And you're all 3 in a different fragmented area of it. Okay, you're all 3 in a different, like, you could all talk the same language, but you're all 3 in I'm always amazed at these careers, and I was amazed at when we were talking to the nurses last week, but in this career here I know a little bit more about how many spiderweb fragmented directions you could go into. Now you're teaching. Now you're teaching. We all know the guy that came out of the field and went to work for the wholesaler selling, or the guy that went to work for the manufacturer as a rep, or the guy that went in to be a dispatcher, or the girl that went in to sell service contracts. I mean, think about all the people in the industry, and think about all the different jobs they do. It's not just one job in this industry, right?
It's not.
Right.
It's a lot of different areas out there.
Yeah, I mean, you even look at like Jeb up here, like Jared. I mean, he was a tech school guy. He had his licenses by the time he was 21. He knew what he wanted to do. He's got a nice business there in Virginia Beach, but he's done different areas of it. He's an electrician. He's a refrigeration guy. He can work on a toaster. He can work on a slicer. I don't know if he can work on a slicer.
I can. I try not to. The things are sharp. You gotta watch out for those things. Tell them, Timmy.
I'm always amazed. It's always hard for me to explain to somebody that asks me about this. And I'll be honest with you. I've had more parents ask me about this industry than I have the kids. I've had more parents call me and say, hey, would you talk to my kid? Or, this or that. I do radio a couple times a week, and I talk about it on there sometimes. And maybe they know me from that, and I'll get an email from them. But the main thing is all the different ways you can go. There must be, in HVAC alone, there must be easily 20 different directions you could take.
It is.
Right?
It is.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so many different job opportunities. So many different job opportunities out there.
We've just sent 2 guys to Switzerland for these pump skids, but they actually went over there to learn the controls because this certain company actually monitors the pump skids from Switzerland.
Wow. So these are big pump skids. They had their own controls package.
Yep.
And they're going to tie in a monitor to it.
They're made for labs.
Yeah.
This company actually guarantees a certain amount of savings. Like they'll send somebody out to audit the building, and then they'll run their calculations, and they'll guarantee them a certain amount of energy savings if they put their skids in. And if they don't get it, that company actually pays them. So now we've got 2 guys that are trained on their controls that are going to travel up and down the East Coast working on these pump skids.
Do you think there's, between the 3 of you, do you think there's any place you could go in America, or not even in America, that you couldn't find a job right away?
Oh yeah.
I know I could.
Yeah, it's a big need.
Right? I mean, literally. I mean, you could. One time I remember, I moved real briefly years ago when I first got into this. Anyway, and I moved to another city, and I walked in a supply house and said, "This is what I do. This is who I am," and I had a job in an hour. I got a feeling all 3 of you, or anybody in this trade that's experienced, could do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Do you know any unemployed good refrigeration, air conditioning?
No.
There's none unemployed, are there?
I don't know any bad ones.
Yeah, and I don't even know any bad ones.
Right, that are unemployed, right?
You haven't hired me.
We're actually.
And I know plenty of bad ones. They just don't work for me.
I know there's been times in my career where I've quit a job with nothing lined up, and it won't long I had something going, So
Yeah, I mean,
you know, you don't really want to do that, but sometimes situations happen and you find yourself, well, time to move on. And I think the longest I've ever been without was probably 3 weeks.
And that's the thing for us. I mean, in our industry, you got to treat your people right. I mean, it's that easy just to go get another job. I mean, an employer, as an employer, HVAC, I mean, you got to do the right things, because it's easy, real easy, like you just said, to just call it quits one day and get another job tomorrow.
And any one of you could, the three of you could say, okay, tomorrow, hey, I want to do supermarket. I want to go do supermarket. You could go get a job at a company that does supermarket, and they would train you to do supermarket. It's a facet. It's another.
Yep.
It's same gauges, by the way. Every one of these jobs you go to,
Yeah.
it's the same gauges. All
That's
right.
probably supermarket is probably the highest demand, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of it out there, and there's a big recruiting thing going on in the supermarket world. Now, for some guys, you got to decide what you like. Supermarket, you spend a lot of time in a motor room. You're up there in a motor room a lot. A lot of supermarket guys I know wouldn't consider themselves people. They like to go to the motor room, PM racks all day long, and they're happy with that, and that's great. That's great.
And it
A
pays
guy that
great.
does-
Pays
Yeah.
well.
Pays great, pays well. It's a good trade. Guys like Timmy, you're out there, you're seeing a different customer like every 2 hours, right?
Most days, but that's,
Yeah.
I mean,
You're moving around.
my transition from residential into the commercial arena is because I just, especially at that point in time in my life, was like, I'm not really feeling people anymore, you know. I mean, you got to have a good personality to be a good residential technician, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. At that point in time in my life, I was jaded on a few things, and so I was like, let me dip into the commercial world. So,
And would you agree, Tim, that it turned into more of a sales job than a technical job?
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. Without a doubt, it was pushing the
All
sales.
about your numbers. It wasn't about you fixing stuff. It was about your numbers.
And you know, I love the company I work for now, and like I said, I've been with them almost 6 years now, and they've the last 3 or 4 years they've been pushing that direction, you know. So it's just, I don't know, you know, either a guy will go, if you don't treat him right, he's gonna quit you and go somewhere else, or you know, you end up like the market I'm in. One man show is a dime a dozen around here. There isn't like a decent sized shop here, you know. It's just a whole bunch of 4 or 5 man shops and 1 man shows, you know, because everyone's just like, screw it, I'll go do it for myself, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing that I've noticed in this trade, that you could do more so well and easily compared to a lot of other trades, is you can just get started. You know, a lot of guys talk about how they started out with a $5,000 credit card and a pickup truck, and you know, a few years later they're, you know, several $100,000 a year company.
Have you
know,
been
by
reading Dave
themselves.
Jones' biography?
I wish it was 5,000. I wish it was 5,000. Trust me, it wasn't 5,000.
it was $50 back then.
Well, you know what? You know, it was still wooden nickels.
it was a box full of oil burner parts.
You know when you say that, you know, there's another facet. You know, you can go into business. My feeling about the industry has always been this. You know, and you'll hear guys argue this all the time. I've heard guys on jobs, you know, oh, you're an installer, you're not a service guy, you know. You're an idiot service guy, you're not an installer. You know, I don't know of any, I know of like 20, 25 different directions this trade can take. I don't know of anyone that's good at what they do that isn't good at what they do. Okay? I'm talking about the ones that are good at what they do are good at what they do. I even know my own company. I have some really, really good installers. Okay, and they've spent a lot of time learning VRF. They've spent a lot of time doing this, doing that, try to stay, you know, geothermal, try to stay on the cutting edge of all this stuff. But those installers would like to do installation. They don't want to do service, and that's fine. They can be great installers.
We need them all.
Yeah, we need them all. We need every facet of it. We need every facet of it, and that's what's really interesting about this industry. And I think guys like you, guys and girls like you, it's important for you to be advocates of that. And I know you guys are, because I see you. I think it's important for people in the trade that are successful to trade, and not just successful if they own a company. I'm talking about career people like you. Okay, career people we got to pull these people up around us. We got to pull these kids up. And look, don't get me wrong, and I think I speak for Jeb and Chuck on this. We're not bashing people that want to get a bachelor's degree. We're just offering alternatives for people that aren't ready to do that. Okay.
Absolutely.
Those nurses that were on here last week, neither one of them started with a bachelor's degree. Both of them ended up with a bachelor's degree. One of them, it took her 11 years to get it, but she got it. Okay, she got it. So we're not bashing that. We're just saying, okay, unless you have a clear path, because let's face it, bachelor's degrees are super expensive right now, and a lot of them. I mean, I hate to say it, I had a couple friends that came to work for me that went to college and got bachelor's degrees, and I had them putting up ductwork, doing whatever. Okay, all right, because they couldn't get a job. They couldn't get a job. They had a degree, but they really didn't have any experience, anything in any job, and that's fine. That's
I think the misconception is want them to do it, and then money's going to be there, but that's not the case. If you got a bullshit degree, a 4-year, I don't care how many years, it could be 8 years. It's still it doesn't have a direct path of the hours that all of y'all have done for your exact career. I mean, we've got master's life. I got exactly. So what is that? What would that do for my career?
He takes a little harder stance than I do.
Hold on just a minute.
Go ahead, Chuck.
My degree was in English writing arts.
And you wrote a book with that.
Yeah, of course.
Many years later, once you had something to write about.
My background in the trades growing up, and in the Navy, being involved with engineering, and it's each person has to find their own way, and it would be best if we had some great advice or better informed parents when it comes to knowing how to encourage our kids along the best path for them at that time. I mean, you never know, but if you're forcing them, get out there and waste $200,000, 4 years of your life partying and barely getting by, wasting, just mega time, which is the opposite of what most people think. It's like, if you spend a year trying to figure out what you want to be, well, that's a waste. No, it's not. I mean, that can make a whole lot of sense as opposed to getting wrapped up around a 4-year degree program, and you're probably changing majors a number of times and still coming out with something that isn't going to pay the bills, and you're working very disappointed with what's available, and you're still lost. Whereas you folks, I think, found a much better path to a very viable career.
Dave, do you have a I'd like to hear from all of you on this. Do you have a plan? Like businesses have business plans, do you have a plan yourself of like where you'd like to see yourself in the industry in 5 years, or like any kind of plan? Like, is there a next thing for you, or do you just love getting up every day doing what you're doing right now
and learning new things every day?
I know I need to start transitioning out of the field. I've been actually talking to my company here lately about training some younger guys to start stepping up and letting some of the other guys step up into my role. But I'm not ready for an office. That's another thing. Like I was saying earlier, like with school, I can't sit and stare at the same four walls all day. I just can't. If I actually ran a company there in Dover. It was Old Man Hammond's company that sold out, if you remember that.
Oh yeah, I knew John well.
I ran that for 2 years, but I mean, I only sat in the office for a couple hours each morning, and then I was out in the field with the guys. That's just who I am, man. I can't sit still. I mean, I can, but I can't sit still for too long a period of time. I start getting really antsy. As you can see right now, I keep moving around.
I haven't seen the chair sit still yet.
But 5 years, 10 years from now, I'm still going to be doing this. Absolutely. I love doing it.
Mhm.
How about you, Michelle? What's your
Right there with Dave. I mean, I love doing what I do. I can't sit still either. Even when I'm at home, I'm always doing something. um, uh, my sister and I pretty much have taken over, our parents' business. My
is she
nephew.
a technician also, or is
No,
she
no, she runs the store and I do the service.
okay?
And actually her son is working for us, which is my nephew, and he will be third generation to be taken over.
Again, another family member. It's
Yep.
always family.
Yeah, I mean, you do not see a lot of businesses third or fourth generation taken over. I mean, you really do not. So
I actually went online and read about your dad's business one time. It's a pretty interesting story.
yeah,
If anybody wants to
it,
Google that
it has
sometime.
it has come a long ways. It really has.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, I can't complain. I mean, business is good. Everybody's doing good.
Timmy?
Yeah, how about you, Tammy? Where do you see yourself? What do you?
And Timmy, do you have a son or a daughter?
I have 3 kids. I have a
And I knew that from Facebook stalking.
I have a 7-year-old that's running around right now, pretty crazy, wide open. I have a 12-year-old stepdaughter and a 19, soon to be 20-year-old stepson. And my stepson was just here this past weekend for Easter. He spent Easter with us. That was nice to see him. Yeah, so I got 3 kids all in all, and it's been a ride. It's been fun. In 5 years, I can't even. Man, right now I don't even know. I mean, I've been thinking here lately, like almost 20 years of this on-call life, and you brought up installers earlier, and I was like, man, I could see myself doing some install work and getting out of this on-call rotation because, like I was saying earlier, there's no big shops here. If I could find a shop that's, stacked, 10, 20 technicians deep where you're on call like 2 or 3 times a year or something, that would be fantastic.
How do you like Virginia, Tammy?
Let's just put it.
Do you guys want to go private for a minute?
Let's put it this way: I am pro Second Amendment, and Virginia is heading the opposite direction. But no, I don't know. I'm thinking maybe depending on how things go with my job, I made a transition last August. I transferred from I used to be in Charlotte, North Carolina. And my wife and I, we've always wanted to live here at the beach and get back to the beach. We did live here before. And so the opportunity arose back in August that we could make that transition back here to the beach. So I transferred with the company, and you can still work for the same company, but different locations operate differently, and you still have the human element of things, whereas a previous location was very hands-off, a lot of personal freedom, give you what you need, set you up for success, and run with it. As long as you didn't aggravate or annoy or piss off a customer, they didn't bother you, And then, I transitioned to a situation where you've got to explain every minute of your timesheet or, just all kinds of just nitpicky little, micromanaging stuff. It's just like, I can't work under these conditions. It's just you let me go and do my job and leave me alone, or I've got to move on from here.
How much you mentioned on call? What in a company like yours? And by the way, every company is different when it comes to on call. I mean, I know the company I have is we have our own on call thing, and luckily we have enough techs. It gets kind of spread out. But in our business, anybody that's listening out there, it's just like the medical field. Those doctors, we did the analogy earlier, those doctors take on call. Some nurses even take on call, the anesthesiologists, whatever. Our job does not shut down. And when we talk about on call, we're talking about after hours. Somebody has to be available for that emergency that might crop up. Timmy, what kind of deal do you have in your company?
Currently, I'm on call every 4 weeks because we only have 4 technicians in the rotation here in the area that I service. Previously, when I was in Charlotte, I was on call all the time. But
you worked out of your home there then, right? Did you work out of your home? Like you really didn't have an office you reported to?
No, I mean, I had an office in Charlotte. When I was in Raleigh with the same company, I started my career here with the branch in Raleigh, went to the Charlotte branch, and now I'm in the Wilmington branch. So
Okay.
that's another, thing in this industry. If you get with one of these larger corporate companies and you do want to make a change, like, I went from Raleigh and then to Charlotte, and now I'm in Wilmington. There's opportunities like that out there as well. But I worked from home from the Raleigh office, and I only went to the office maybe once every couple months for meetings, and that was it. Otherwise, I worked out of my house, parts shipped to my house, things like that. When I went to Charlotte, I was more into the branch. They had a Charlotte branch there. I didn't have to go there all the time, only if I had to go pick up parts that I've ordered or things like that. But we had a contract with one customer that had 24 hospital locations, and it was me and one other technician, and that's all we did. And I was the only refrigeration guy in the shop, and we told them we did refrigeration as part of the contract. So that put me on call 24/7, 365 for just that one customer. And fortunately, the contract was an exquisite PM contract. I mean, we cleaned everything from the walls to the floors. I mean, we took care of everything for those guys. So stuff didn't really break down. I might have gotten, I think last year up till I left in August, I only had like 2 calls for 8 months.
Wow.
The year before that, I only had 3 calls for the whole entire year. So
That's because you were handling the PMs, though.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We were running pre-filters on condensers. We were cleaning drain lines. We were doing things like it should be done.
Making our customers go to PMs, if they don't do them, we don't go, has been the biggest save of after hours, on call, nights, weekends. And we're to the point now, if they don't sign up, we won't respond.
Nice.
Yeah, it's like a car. When we say PM in our industry, preventive maintenance, it's like a car. Everybody drives a car. You get your oil changed, you get your filters changed. Can you imagine if you didn't get your oil changed and your filters changed in a car? The car's going to break down on the side of the road, and it's always going to break down at 10 o'clock at night or on a holiday. It's the same for refrigeration, heating, air conditioning stuff. If you don't maintain it, Dave gets in a lot of water-based stuff. If it's not maintained, your cooling towers and stuff like that. It's just gonna be a nightmare.
Yes, it will.
That's Chuck. You look like you have a question. I can always tell with your face.
Well, as we were talking about the correlation between.
I thought he had gas.
Yeah, gas, but he's also got a question.
We were talking earlier about the correlation between. We were talking to the nurses last week and how when you go to the doctor, the first thing they do is check your temperatures and your pressures and so on. Same with you guys. And now we're talking the preventive maintenance and the things that we ought to be doing to take care of ourselves so that we don't end up in the emergency room.
You mean diet and exercise?
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe we can go to that extreme.
Or just doing PM work all day, huh?
Yeah.
Putting your body in all kinds of funky positions, working on that stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe yoga. Hot yoga. Yeah, that's it. But what advice would you folks give, based on what you've experienced, to parents when it comes to how to advise their kids, when they're not sure what they want to do in life? They're in that high school time frame.
And we really need to get this like 9th, 10th graders. They need to have a plan before 11th and 12th. So, I mean, like the 9th and 10th graders.
Well, I was kind of thinking back to the schooling. They took shop out of junior high, and I think that's what piqued my interest. I think I personally was more interested around that age and kind of set me on my path. I mean, I could be way off here, but that coupled with money, that'll motivate anybody.
I remember building a shed in the junior high shop, and I think that thing was full. I mean, it was full of lead. There was so many nails. in those sheds because everyone was just banging nails. I mean, that thing had to weigh. I don't even know how much that weighed, but they probably. There's no way whoever bought that shed from us. They made out because of just in metal alone. If they scrapped that shed, they would have got their money back.
It turned into a hurricane shelter.
There was so many nails. Well, go ahead,
Tim,
Dave. Sorry to
what
cut you
advice
off.
would you give to parents?
I really don't know. I mean, I have no idea. I've got a 19-year-old son. He started out saying that he wanted to go to college and do marine biology. And his heart was set on doing marine biology. And his parents, his mom and dad talked to him. I talked to him a little bit, and I just asked him one day. I was like, "What do you know about marine biology?" He's like, "Well, not much. I just really love animals and the water and stuff." And I was like, maybe you should look into it a little bit, kind of get a feel around for it, maybe research it a little bit, see if that's something you still want to do, and I want to say it was probably 2 or 3 months later, he was like, "Oh, well, most of them work for the state, or, the most of them are just doing this or that, and that stuff sounds kind of lame, and then a lot of it's contract type work. The state might have a contract out there that they need certain marine biologists to look in to this species of fish to see how that is working out. And when the contract is up, guess what? You're out of a job, So he's kind of transitioned more into, he's always been very athletic. He's an amazing soccer player. And so he just kind of got into, well, I'm kind of more interested in doing something with athletics, maybe some personal training type situation or something like that. So he's working more into that direction. Unfortunately, that does require quite a bit of schooling for him, but he's busting it in a blue collar job right now. He's, working at an automotive dealership, detailing cars and stuff like that, to make his dreams come true. So I've talked to him a little bit about the career that I'm in, the trade that I'm in. His grandfather on his dad's side is a rack refrigeration guy. And then recently his biological father has gotten a job working more towards that rack refrigeration type situation. So I don't know, before you know it, we might have another one.
Back to the family. It's always family.
I can't tell you how important it was to me growing up to be on the job site with my father, who was a contractor doing all sorts of carpentry, masonry. He did, installing of heating systems, which no one in upstate New York had air conditioning because we didn't need it back then. We didn't think, but all of that experience was helpful regardless of where I was heading.
Right.
How about you, Michelle? Any advice for parents to?
I mean, you are a teacher.
Yeah.
I mean, me myself, I think they need to kind of stand back and watch their child and see really what interests they have. If they want to pick up that hammer and drive a nail through a piece of wood, don't, tell them no, let them do it, and there's a lot of summer programs, I've sent my oldest daughter, there was an art institute out in Raleigh, North Carolina, had a summer program. She wanted to be an artist. I let her go for the summer. It was a week she spent at the college. There was another program I sent my youngest daughter to, was over at the hospital. They did, I think it was a 1 or 2 week program. They had them going in there doing x-rays. They had them in the ER. It's a lot of programs that are free to kids, that are still in middle school and high school. Just look for them, give the child that opportunity to do that. And that will kind of give them an interest. Well, maybe I do want to do it. Maybe I don't want to do it. And if they don't, they've got a taste of it, and it kind of gives them an understanding, if they really do want to pursue, that field, or they may not, once they've done it, they were like, okay, maybe I don't want to do that,
That's good stuff, Michelle. This is kind of a question I have for the three of you. It's kind of a yes or a no. Would you characterize this industry? And I think of other technical industries the same way, but this one in particular is always. Would you characterize it as something that you can really set your own pace on getting ahead? Like you can excel in this industry as fast as you want to excel,
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
right? I mean,
I agree.
time in. Would you agree, Dave? Time in isn't as big a deal as passion is, and
Yeah.
willing to learn.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
It used to be, you know, when we had an overabundance of people in the trade that you still had to pay your dues. But now that, you know, the tides have turned on that, yes, you can absolutely set your own pace.
That's one of the things that I think is one of the most attractive things about industries like this, especially this industry, because I'm in this industry, so I understand it. I feel like I'm starting to understand it anyway. But, I'm getting there. But one of the biggest, most attractive features of it to me, for somebody would be, and I've seen proof of this time and time again. You can excel in this. I'm gonna use this analogy. If a 20-year-old kid, 21-year-old guy walked into my office and he had been to trade school and he got a certificate or whatever he was about to get, and he wanted a job and he came to work for us, there is nothing holding this guy back or girl back, either one. There's nothing holding them back. They can, if they do all the basics, show up on time,
Yes.
do good paperwork, take direction, continue to learn. Like if they do all the basics, they can admit, this is a big one, admit what they don't know.
Right.
Very big in the industry to admit. I always say, take what you know and put it aside. I want to know what you don't know. Okay. Because we're going to fix that problem. We can't fix it unless you admit it. All right. Okay. And you can't hide behind. Dave, how many guys have you seen in your life in this trade that were great piping guys, but they couldn't figure out control wiring? They couldn't hook up 5 wires.
Too many.
Okay, too many. And the reason they couldn't do that is because they got really good at one aspect.
Yep.
And then they were afraid, ego-wise almost, to peel back the onion and say, I don't know that other thing. I don't know how to hook those wires up. I don't know how to charge that unit. So that guy is going to be stymied. He's going to stop at a certain level. Now, the guy that I always tell young guys, and it sounds weird, I say, keep a running list of stuff you don't know.
Right.
And then keep checking it off. Keep crossing it off. You've got to understand the things you don't know. Okay. All right. And you got to be able to admit it. And then you got to be able to punch through it and learn it. But if you get a young guy like that, or young girl, young person like that, and they have that attitude and they have those basic operational work ethic type things, I'm telling you, they can fly as fast as they want in this industry.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they can.
But Dave, you said 2021. They can fly that fast at like 16, 17.
Yeah, whatever the age is, whatever the age is. I mean, out of the gates.
Yep.
But this industry, show up on time, good paperwork, you know.
I hope
good
please say that again one more time for my people listening in. Good paperwork.
It's all the
Good
basic.
paperwork.
But what I'm saying is, you find those, and you find, I've been doing this a long time. You know, I've been 40 years, like in this 40 plus in this industry, and you find those guys. Those guys appear. Those guys are there, and people listening out there, you could be one of those people. And you know what?
Yep.
You don't have to be 20 years old to be one of those people. If you're in a career that isn't going anywhere, and you're 42 years old, okay, I can tell you this career firsthand is a career you could cross train into.
Absolutely.
All right. If you're sick of being in your cubicle, okay, or sick of knocking on doors, selling widgets or whatever you do, all right, this is a career that with a I always say with a I say minimal time investment, but really high passion to fuel your engine to learn it. This is a career that you could really excel in. This could be a second career too, right? Don't you agree?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it
so
doesn't take long. I mean, I've got guys 2 years in, they're in the 40s. 2 years in, they're making $40-some thousand easily in 2 years, just starting out, didn't know anything. I mean, that's coming from a helper. We put them in school. I mean, that's an easy thing to do. If
and they're
they apply
going nowhere but up. I mean, that's
They don't have to knock anybody off to climb the corporate ladder. You know, we
They're
we
putting the
welcome
time
many
in.
lead techs.
Yeah. There's not like a hierarchy or anything like that. I think that's one of the most attractive things about this industry. And you guys demonstrate that, because just your stories alone, all three of you have a story. Just your stories alone demonstrate that you can just go as far as you want. You can just keep going. I'm telling you, I mean, I know that Dave Gerald could pick up the phone tomorrow and probably call any manufacturer. They'd hire him right now. Okay. They would hire him.
Or us.
Timmy, you could, or Timmy, Michelle, you'd have all sorts of opportunities. It's the reason you're teaching at the school now. There's somebody that was doing it out in the field, and they said, "Wait a minute, can you teach for us? And that's I don't know of anything better than that. And that's a pretty big compliment, right there.
Yeah, it is.
And Timmy, that restaurant work is no joke. I know what you're doing day in, day out, and restaurant guys are hard to find, especially the good ones. There's a lot of hacks out there. They don't make it last. They don't last long.
Yeah, it's an interesting area of the industry. A lot of people ask me how to get involved with this area of the industry, and I tell them straight up, just go to your community college, take the HVAC course, and from there you could pretty much take off in this industry, this area of the industry, if that's what you want to do.
Or better yet, if you find out early enough, go to your high school VOTEC and get that 2-year for free, like me and Jal did.
Yeah, if your state has opportunities like that for you, definitely take advantage of them. You know, definitely. But yeah, if you want to get into any, I mean, I always refer to HVAC as the pyramid. You know, I mean, we've got to know refrigeration, electrical, plumbing. We've got to know a lot about a lot of different trades in the HVAC industries. So, I mean, you can start out in HVAC and decide, hey, I'd rather do plumbing, and you could easily transition over to that because you've already got to know a little bit about that just to do the HVAC area of the trade, you know.
Or you'd rather do controls.
Or
you'd rather be a facilities manager somewhere, or a stationary guy, or
absolutely.
Now wait a minute. It sounds to me like it's easier to go from HVAC to other trades than it is maybe to go like from being a plumber into HVAC.
That's true. Electricals have a one leg up, though. If you know controls, you can do it all.
But HVAC is, to answer your question, Chuck, and I think these people agree, it's the all-encompassing one, okay? It's the all-encompassing one. And if you're an HVAC, it really helps if you get a good refrigeration background also.
Yeah.
Okay, it can provide a few more opportunities for you here and there, maybe give you a little bit more education on the whole thing as far as piping controls, things like that.
Mhm.
But you're right, Chuck, when you say that if you get a good foundation in HVAC, and a good foundation for anybody that's listening out there is electrical starts your good foundation. Going into the sealed system, you see guys and girls carry these gauges around and put them on, and you always wonder, hey, there's that refrigeration guy again. He's carrying those things. What the hell do they do? All right, those things. There are blood pressure cuff. Okay, there are stethoscope, whatever you want to call it. They let us know. We look at those needles, and we know what's going on. We know what pressures and temperatures, and we know the relationship between the two, and it tells us a story for what's happening inside as the heart's beating in the system there, and the fluids are running all around.
Dr. Dave.
Well, that's how you got to look at it. When I went to trade school, that's how the guy at Philadelphia Wireless in Philly, when I went to trade school, that's what he used to say. This is the heart, this is the capillaries going out. That's how he taught us.
They taught it to us too.
Yeah. So that's the basics are so, so important. And if you're listening to this out there and you think that you have to be great in algebra, I'm living proof you don't. I took algebra, 3 years of algebra. I took algebra 1 3 times. Okay. All right.
That sounds familiar.
All right. You don't have to be. Do you have to be Sir Isaac Newton? No, you don't. Okay. No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. This is an industry. Dave said something about an hour ago. he said, you know what? I was learning so much stuff I didn't need to learn that I hated high school. All right. This industry here, you'll fall in love with the industry and you'll have a passion for it. You'll want to learn everything about it. You're going to want to understand. You're going to understand what pressure is. You're going to want to understand what condensing means. You're going to understand what superheat means. You're going to want to understand these things. Trust me, because you're going to get in there and you're going to want to understand it. And then when you understand it, you know, when you understand this stuff, it's all going to make sense to you. You're going to be able to look at a system, no matter what it is, no matter whether it's Michelle's system, Timmy's system, or Dave's system, and you're gonna know. Michelle might be out working on a home refrigerator. Dave's working on a 140-ton multi-stack chiller, water cooled with twin cooling towers. And guess what? They're literally working on the same system.
Yeah.
It's doing the same thing. It might be done a little bit different way, but they're using the same tools and the same basic knowledge.
Absolutely. We are a little over our hour mark. Yeah, I know.
I
Time
want to
flies
thank
when we're
everybody for
talking.
the comments. There were some great comments going on in the.
Yeah, I was trying to respond to a couple of them. Back to the closing. HVAC for life. We got a panel up here of 3 people. You got me and Dave as well. They're in the industry. We've all gone our different paths. We're all still here. We all started in the same, whether it was a VOTEC or a college class, all started in HVAC. Every single one started HVAC school. It leads to many, many jobs: appliance repair, refrigeration, air conditioning. I mean, cooking. It just goes everywhere. You don't have to go to college, but you do have to go to college. You can start with VOTEC, but you're gonna have to take college. If you ever want to get a master's, you're gonna have to take night classes, like I did. I'm sure Dave did. You can't be a business owner without them. So starts out with journeymans, and then I was just actually saw John Vargas was talking about 2 years, I guess he says, in Texas. That's all they needed to get it. So if you're a hack, move to Texas. John Vargas could use.
Come on now, let's
some more competition.
Don't you have another Jello shooter to eat or something?
Yeah. So thank all of y'all very much. HVAC show. Me and Dave had to get our passion out. Last week we had the nurses, and they were extremely passionate. And I'm like, man, I'm just as passionate for my field, and I know Dave is. And listening to y'all tonight, you are just as passionate as we all are. We hope people will listen to this and they'll join the trade, because we all need more HVAC refrigeration techs out there. And with that, we're going to wrap it up in a nice goodbye. Close it out, everybody. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jeb, I just wanted to thank these guys for their professionalism and coming on here and being part of this. I know all 3 of you just through Facebook. You're all 3 professionals. I mean, you're all 3.
Thank you.
No, you're all 3 really good examples of professionals in this field within your own segment of the field. And I just want to thank you for coming on, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
Hey, Chuck, go ahead.
This
Inspirational.
was great. I was the lone man out here, not being actually in the field so much, but I certainly know a lot about all of the basics of heating and air conditioning, and from engineering in the Navy. But this was a great show. Sure appreciate you folks, and it's great being around people that are doing what they want to be doing.